4 minerals are found in objects we rely on every day. Often, these minerals come from the Democratic Republic of Congo, where they are sought and sold under a cloud of violence. These are known as conflict minerals. The 4 minerals are especially prevalent in electronic devices and the processors that power them, but are also everywhere in our modern world. Can be found in almost every facet of our lives. By understanding how materials are sought and sourced and asking what's in the products we use, we can make better choices. Get curious, get informed, get involved, join the pursuit of conflict-free.
So how often do you think about how the products you use every day are made? Do you consider who made your TV, or your phone, or your computer, or the parts in your car? Do you consider who caught the fish and the shrimp that you eat? Do you consider who harvested your fruits and your vegetables? Do you think about who harvested the cotton in the shirt that you're wearing, or who sewed its pieces together? Do you think about who harvested your coffee and your cocoa beans? Or do you consider if you're consuming the blood and the sweat and the tears of someone who has never tasted chocolate or coffee? Until a few years ago, I never had any reason to consider any of these questions. I lived in blissful ignorance, completely unaware of the fact that the way I live my life and the choices I make as a consumer affect the slavery of other people. Until one fateful day, I went to this website called slaveryfootprint.org, and I took a survey. And this survey asked me lots of questions about my everyday, mundane life. It asked me questions about how many articles of clothing hang in my closet, what kind of house I live in, how many rooms it has, how many people are in my household, what kinds of foods I consume on a daily basis, how many electronics I have and what kinds of those I have, how many toiletries I use and what kinds of cosmetics I consume. And at the end of this survey, it generated a number, 74. But what does this number mean, 74? 74 is the number of slaves that my lifestyle supports. So think about this. I'm a PhD student. My husband is a teacher. We have one child. We live in a modest home in Columbia, South Carolina. We eat lots of organic foods, and we wear our clothes until they wear out. And still, my lifestyle supports the slavery of 74 people. How can this be the case? How is it possible that I, a red-blooded American who loves freedom and who hates slavery, am involved in the slavery of 74 other people? The simple truth is that if we are consumers, we inevitably consume products made by slaves. This is unavoidable. There are several core factors that play into this reality. The first is the demand for cheap goods. We are ever looking for good deals and great finds and things that we would consider to be great values, but we don't think about the cost of those cheap goods. The second factor is the increase in globalization, and more specifically, global production. So it's true today more than ever before that we live in a global community. We can instantaneously talk with people on the other side of the world, and we can very quickly and easily attain products that were made very, very far distances from us. And a third factor plays into this is that there is a lack of labor regulations in many of the places that produce our goods. So in many of the places in these far off areas and corners of the world where our products are made, there are not very many labor regulations or safeguards in place for the people who are making the products that we use every day. So there's a reason why many of our goods are so cheap. They cost us very little, but they cost other people very, very much. So consider this.
Tick if the following apply to you. Has your passport or ID been confiscated by your employer? Are you accompanied wherever you go? Does someone always answer questions on your behalf? Are you forced to live and work in the same place? Are you bullied or shouted at? Are you physically abused? Does your employer make sexual advances? Are you denied adequate food, denied appropriate clothing, medical care, time off, sleep? Do your wages go to repaying an impossibly large debt? If you answered yes to some or all of these questions, you may be one of a not-so-exclusive club. You're a slave. No one knows exactly how many slaves there are today, but a global slavery index by Walk Free Foundation puts the figure at around 30 million. The scourge exists in every country, but 10 nations alone account for 3/4 of the world's slaves. Almost half are in India, where slavery ranges from bonded labor in garment factories to commercial sex exploitation. Next comes China, followed by Pakistan, Nigeria, Ethiopia, Russia, Thailand, Democratic Republic of Congo, Myanmar, and Bangladesh. Many of the enslaved are trafficked into prostitution, but far more are forced into manual labor or domestic servitude. They work in mines and factories, on ships, farms, and building sites, in hotels and private homes. Slavery is all around us. It's been linked to the supply chains of many everyday products, from shoes and bags to matches and soccer balls. It lurks in the commodities that fuel the global economy: cocoa, coffee, precious metals. Multinational supply chains are sometimes so convoluted and opaque that it's hard to pinpoint the agent or subcontractor using slave labor. From frozen shrimp to mobile phones, how can we be sure the products we buy weren't produced through human misery? What can businesses and consumers do to guarantee the things in our lives are genuinely slave-free?
So this is the crucial question. What can we do to guarantee that the things in our lives are not made by slaves? What can we do about this? So I have a few practical suggestions for us today. The first is to gain awareness. Get information about the products that you're buying and where you're buying them from and the track records of the companies that you like to support. Go and take the Slavery Footprint Survey. That is a great place to start. And as you start to become more and more aware, bring other people along with you and make sure that they are aware as well. The second thing you can do is advocate. Talk to the companies that you like. Inquire from them about the products that they made. Demand supply chain transparency from these companies. Bug them. If they're not giving you the answers that you need to hear, then maybe consider alternative companies or products that you would want to support. The third thing you can do is you can get political. So talk to your local and your state and your national lawmakers and implore them to make laws that protect slaves. Implore them to make labor laws that are going to protect slaves and transparency laws that are going to make it easier for you to find and seek out answers about the products that you use. And the last suggestion I have is to change some habits. So it's not easy for us to change the way we live and to change the ways that we shop and the ways that we buy, but it is possible. So where there are fair trade alternatives to the products that we like to buy, I would encourage you to seek those out and to buy them. Up here we have some examples of some of the logos that you can look for when you're trying to shop for fair trade products, and these logos are going to be especially prominent on some of the foods that you could buy, so things like coffee and chocolate and tea, but a plethora of other foods might have these or similar labels as well. Clothing and textiles and apparel, you also might be able to find some of these labels on those kinds of items. Rugs and carpets are another main place where we are sometimes involved in the slavery of other people, and the sad truth is that the tiny fingers of children oftentimes weave the patterns into the rugs that we spend a lot of money on. So up here, this is a Good Weave logo for a company or for an organization called Good Weave, and they actually certify that certain rugs and carpets were not made with slave labor or child labor. The picture on the right, over here, this was actually on the back of a rug that I found right around this time last year at Target. So Target's Threshold brand of rugs is either in the process of becoming or has already attained all of their rugs being Good Weave certified. So if you're in the market for a rug, look for this on the back of it. And if you do, you can be assured that the rug you're buying was not made by slaves or by children. When it comes to diamonds and other precious gems, there are some ways that you can try to make sure that those diamonds were not mined in conflict zones. One way is the Kimberley process. I would encourage you to do a little bit of research into that process. And if you're in the market for diamonds or other gems in the future, ask questions. Does this have a Kimberley process certificate? There are some other ways that you can also look for fair trade of diamonds and other gems, but this is one example. In the first video that we watched, you saw an example of what Intel is doing with conflict-free, with conflict minerals. Unfortunately, it's not the case that I can walk in today to the Verizon store and pick out a new phone and look for this or similar label on that phone to make sure that the minerals in it are conflict-free minerals. But we can advocate for that, right? There's an idea that exists. Some electronics do have this conflict-free certification, but we can advocate for a much wider spread of that so that maybe in 2 years or 5 years or 10 years, when I go to look for a new phone, I can look specifically for this or a similar logo. Or if I go to Best Buy to pick out a new laptop, I can look at all the computers and look for the ones that have this sticker or label on them. When I talk about this and when I think about this for myself, it's very easy to become very overwhelmed. I mean, my lifestyle supports 74 slaves. How can I be okay with that? And what can I actually do about that? How can I make a difference? Is that possible? And so I like to remind myself and other people of the parable of the starfish. It goes something like this. There was a little boy, and he was walking along the beach with his friend, and the tide had come in and had gone back out, and it had left thousands of starfish washed up on the shore. And the little boy picked up one and he tossed it back in the ocean. And a friend who was with him was just watching, and he picks up another and he tosses it back in the ocean. And after a few times, his friend says, "Look, what are you doing? There are thousands of starfish on the shore. You can't make a difference. Why are you even bothering to throw them back?" And he picks up another and he tosses it back in the ocean. And he says, "Well, it made a difference to that one." And he picks up another and he tosses it into the ocean. And he said, "It made a difference to that one." I can't decrease my slavery footprint from 74 to 0 over the course of a day, or a week, or a month, or a year, or maybe several decades. It's impossible. But I can make a difference one person at a time. I can make a difference for that one, and I can make a difference for this one. And so maybe over the course of my life, I can reduce the number of slaves that it supports by 2, or 5, or 10, or 20, or 50, or maybe 74. And if I can do any of that, then I will be making a difference to that one. Thank you.